The television has been a gateway to other perspectives, other points in time, and other worlds. Of the many worlds we can travel to through our strange glass portals, none are weirder, more surreal, or more fantastic than those brought to us by cartoons. The animated cartoon has been a staple of the American living room since the debut of the modern television in the 1950s. Colorful characters and wacky landscapes reflected the absurdity of modern society in a way that was poignant, biting, and funny. But the animated pictures served to do more than to make people laugh. Cartoons were used as educational tools in classrooms, or to advertise products, or even as propaganda. Cartoons have grown alongside American culture, but somewhere along the way, American culture made an assumption. Cartoons were for kids. But when did the American culture decide that cartoons weren't for grown-ups? To answer that question, we have to go back. Way back. In 1928, the Great Depression was in full swing when a young cartoonist by the name of Walt Disney debuted a character that would become his most famous creation. Although Steamboat Willie was not the first animated feature to show in theaters, it was the first appearance of Mickey Mouse, the most famous and influential fictional character in film and television. Out-of-work families affected by the financial crisis would revel in any form of escapism that they could find, and would flock to the moving pictures as respite from the weary world.
They're not for children. All those old Looney Tunes shows are not meant for children. They played before movies to get people wild up and excited for the movie. They weren't to babysit your children.
Right.
So that's why there's a lot of adult humor. I mean, Bugs Bunny dressing in drag is maybe cool now, but back then in the day, it was pretty risque. Like it's pretty heavy. I don't think you'd let your kids watch that back in like the 40s.
Steamboat Willie and other animated shorts of the time amazed children with their fantastical nature, but would also appeal to adults with their sympathetic portrayals of downtrodden working class. Ever since, the animated picture has had a dual relationship with children and adults. Walt Disney would go on to establish the largest media empire of all time, focusing on the magic of the moving picture. Meanwhile, competitors such as Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera, and many others would establish their own brands throughout the decades to appeal to audiences of all ages.
God, well, I grew up with classic Warner Brothers, which I still think are some of the most violent cartoons I've ever seen.
Throughout the 30s, animated characters would achieve celebrity status on par with their real-life contemporaries. Among these up-and-comers, Betty Boop grew as a sex symbol for adults until the Motion Picture Production Code of 1930 enforced her into a more sexually subdued appearance.
I must have watched the Minnie the Moocher cartoon over and over and over again. I've freeze frame it. I would watch it frame by frame by frame.
In the 1940s, cartoons were used as propaganda amidst growing tensions between the world's superpowers. Favorite characters like Bugs Bunny and Donald Duck were thrust into roles as wartime soldiers for the sake of emboldening the image of the U.S. in the eyes of children.
The Führer's Face,
Right.
with Hitlerland. It's a great cartoon.
While Disney dominated theaters throughout the 50s, with classics like Cinderella, Peter Pan, and Lady and the Tramp, MGM Studios and the Hanna-Barbera Company moved their animated efforts towards household programming, thanks to an innovation growing in popularity known as the home television set. In the 60s, the Flintstones became the first prime-time animated series, aimed originally at adults. In the 1970s and 80s, Ralph Bakshi used animation to make statements about the modern world for his fellow man to contemplate. Meanwhile, kids crowded around the TV every weekend to catch the immensely popular Saturday morning cartoon block. For many, the children's cartoon became a cynical franchise, meant only to sell toys and push agendas to impressionable youth. Adult animation would find its place in the underground corners of artistry. While many animators would use the medium to pass on mature messages, money in the cartoon industry tended to favor younger audiences. That wasn't until 1989 when the Fox television network debuted a show that would change the nature of cartoons forever. Matt Groening's The Simpsons combined the wacky hijinks of Looney Tunes with the trials and tribulations of the modern American family. The show's approach appealed to both audiences of adults and children and opened a door for many creatives to follow suit.
Why are The Simpsons supposed to be an adult animated because it's prime time?
Around this time, the establishment of two major cable networks, Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, would offer even more opportunities to up-and-coming cartoonists to find mainstream success with their creations. While these networks were aimed primarily at younger audiences, the artists were given the freedom to explore more mature ideas and themes, and were even encouraged to include concepts and jokes that only adults would understand.
That's the place. Siciliana, come see what the stork brought us.
Oh, look! He's got his father's eyes. Oh, he's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Here's a 20.
Amongst a new wave of subversive tunes advertised to children, John Kricfaluski's Ren and Stimpy would blur the lines of mature humor, while the show was marketed alongside Nickelodeon's youth-oriented programming. Ren and Stimpy included dark humor and sexual innuendo.
Still one of my most prized possessions is I think it was an 8-hour VHS tape that a friend of mine cut of Ren and Stimpy, which you can't hardly find at all anymore, even online. So, Kirsha Faldy and his style was totally blew me away when he came in. So.
The philosophy behind many cartoons of the 90s was to provide a whimsical and irreverent setting for kids to enjoy, while also offering poignant messages of parody and irony that only adults could appreciate. Still, some companies would try their hand at animation meant only for adults. MTV's Liquid Television saw the underground success of shows like Beavis and Butthead and Aeon Flux for viewers who weren't compelled by children's programming. In 1996, the FCC enacted the Children's Television Act, requiring networks to include a quota of educational content within their programming for children. The act was well-meaning, but it ultimately stiffed many television outlets into favoring more juvenile approaches to animation over artistic or thought-provoking shows. Although the separation between adult and children's animation was growing, cartoonists were empowered by the success of The Simpsons to try their hand at concepts with more mature themes. Many new animated shows would appear in primetime lineups with attempts to capitalize on The Simpsons' adult tone and appeal. Few would stick, though Fox would find further success in the adult cartoon market with Seth MacFarlane's Family Guy. In 1997, two filmmakers from Colorado would redefine the boundaries on acceptable cartoon content forever with their breakout hit, South Park.
I'm going down to South Park, gonna have myself a time.
Friendly faces everywhere, humble folks without temptation.
Going down to South
At the turn of the millennium, children's entertainment would move away from the age-old reliance on cartoons and traditional animation. For a time, Nickelodeon and even Cartoon Network would favor live-action entertainment in their main programming slots. Cartoon Network would begin to embrace animation as adult entertainment with their new programming block called Adult Swim. Adult animation emerged as a mainstream phenomenon in the early 2000s, though its significance was strictly American, as the art form was already celebrated by adults around the world.
I think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Japanese animation, better known as anime, was a prevalent form of entertainment with a history parallel to its American contemporary. Using techniques atypical to American animation, anime became famous for its portrayals of action and emotion not often found in its Western counterparts. Due to a cultural difference in their approach to censorship, Japanese anime famously used animation as a medium to explore otherwise taboo subjects, such as extreme violence and eroticism. Anime did not reach the States as a significant medium until the 90s, when cable networks offered specific programming blocks to showcase the art form. Perhaps the most famous example of these showcases was Cartoon Network's Toonami. While Toonami offered a mainstream glimpse at famous young adult series like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, Adult Swim also embraced Eastern animation, with breakout series like Fooly Cooly, Full Metal Alchemist, Cowboy Bebop, and many others. Adult Swim exposed American viewers to an art that conveyed themes and ideas that many believed could not be expressed in a cartoon format. Anime would make an immense impact on modern American animation, inspiring new cartoonists to emulate the style and finesse of this unique Japanese form. Though Japan was not the only foreign entity that used animation as a cultural expression. In fact, you can find artistic animation from all over the world, including France, North Korea, Germany, Italy, Israel, and many others. The world was no stranger to adult animation, as artists embrace new techniques, technology, and stylistic choices. The lines between art and entertainment blend even further.
I think it's an art form that to this day still gets underrated a lot, and I think that it allows freedom to its writers and artists that you really don't get in many other forms right now.
We are in a golden era for animation. In recent years, Cartoon Network has utilized the talents of subversive, emotionally mature, and artistically exciting animation teams to deliver stories and series that celebrate a child's intelligence rather than patronize it. Emotionally gripping stories like Adventure Time, irreverent explorations of humor such as Regular Show, and boundary-pushing explorations of mixed media like The Amazing World of Gumball offer experiences that appeal equally to children and adults. Gennady Tartakovsky, a longtime Cartoon Network alum, started his tenure with Dexter's Laboratory, a show meant for children. As he grew as an artist, Gennady offered the more mature and action-oriented Samurai Jack to the Cartoon Network lineup. Though the show saw some success, its mature themes did not catch on with younger audiences. In the past few years, Tartakovsky returned to the Samurai Jack story, except this time he presented it as a mature-themed conclusion on Adult Swim. The masterclass cartoonist has recently released Primal, an adult exploration on man versus nature. The acknowledgement of adult nostalgia has made way for a new genre of cartoons that investigate the relationship a grown-up may have with their inner child. Disney's new Mickey Mouse cartoons offer a nostalgic journey for adults and a new hilarious world for younger viewers. Anime and animation from other foreign lands has never been more welcomed by American viewers, and the gate at which audiences can absorb these shows and performances has never been more accessible. New avenues in media such as streaming services and on-demand like Netflix have allowed even more creators to put forth quality animated content for the masses. Cartoons may still be an avenue to sell products to children, to educate infants and toddlers, or to be a distraction for bored preteens. But make no mistake, adults can like cartoons. In fact, cartoons may go down as a significant modern art form.